Welcome to Season 3 of the Take the Leap podcast. We want to thank you for being a part of this journey with us.
Whether you're just starting to tune in or you're a longtime listener of the podcast, you can expect to hear from entrepreneurs in all stages of their journey, how they got to where they are, and all the mistakes and victories they've had along the way.
We're excited to share new guests and have some returning folks from our first 2 seasons. Thank you for being here, and we hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome back, everyone, to the Take the Leap podcast. We're really excited for our guest today, Zhou Fang, the founder and principal consultant at Intersectional Group, LLC, a leadership, people, and culture practice with a focus on intersectionality, empathy, compassion, intentionality, as well as curiosity. Zhou is also an intersectionality practitioner. She works with folks who are willing, excited, and ready to learn about and practice intersectionality, intentionality, restoration, and healing. Zhou is a passionate advocate for pay transparency and equity. And I also know that you did what are those called? Where you say things for the bill that passed in Oregon.
Testimony.
Right? You did the testimony, yeah, which is so awesome. Sorry to take us off the bio journey, but that was really cool. You're also an advocate for mental well-being, immigration reform, and climate justice, as well as a committed ally for the LGBTQIA+ and Indigenous communities. Currently, Zhou serves on the board of Portland HR Management Association, as well as a thought leader for the Policy Committee at Women's Foundation of Oregon. She is also the producer and host of The Intersection, a podcast program about intersectionality, identity, leadership, and personal journey, which I had the pleasure of being a guest on. And then outside of her work, Zhou is a proud dog and plant parent and a comedy and horror movie enthusiast. She also loves good food and loves to travel. And we're just so happy to have you on the podcast today, Zhou. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry you had to read that.
It's all good.
Yes, welcome. We're so excited to have you and chat with you today.
You know, I love to read people's bios because I feel like sometimes folks, when you hear it read out loud about yourself, you're like, wow, I do a lot of really cool things, or it helps with the imposter syndrome. And I think even when I have it read out when I'm on podcast episodes, I'm like, yeah, I'm a badass. That's really, really interesting.
Yeah, I do that.
I know. I mean, I don't know if you all knew this, but yesterday was International Self-Care Day.
That's right.
So it's like self-care and self-love, July 24, because we are supposed to take care of ourselves 24/7. I learned that. So I thought that was really cool. And it's a good reminder, we have to, have affirmation for ourselves. Like, I'm so proud of you.
I love it. Well, let's dive in. I would love to hear what your Take the Leap story is. How did you decide to journey into entrepreneurship?
Yeah. I grew up, so I never thought I would become someone who worked for myself until around 2020. Actually, it was COVID, and then all the social justice movements in our lives. And prior to 2020, I had already started to think about exactly what I'm doing with my life, because I had jobs, and because I need immigration sponsorship like H-1B visa, etc., I felt very dependent on an employer. So it's like, of course, almost everyone has a job, but I feel like for certain immigrants, including myself, it's more than that. It almost feels like your life depends on it. Like, if you don't have a visa, then there's nothing going on in this country. So I felt like I had to follow this path. And at some point, in 2018, 2019, I started to kind of really reflect on that, like wondering if this is this it? Is this it for me? And in 2020, because of all the pandemic impact, as well as social justice movements, which was so much needed and important, I started to really think about who am I and what am I gonna do in this time in our basically where we are as a whole. And I came across the intersectionality framework, and I was really kind of like a lightning struck. I felt like, oh my God, this is something I've been waiting on for a long time. And suddenly just being educated and enlightened by this framework. So intersectionality was created by Professor Kimberly Crenshaw. So wonderful, wonderful intellectual, great kind of figure in social justice movements. So I think it was during around that time I felt like maybe I could work for myself. And then in 2022, 2 years later, I was able to receive my green card, which is also permanent residency of the United States. So I felt it was time for me to take the leap.
Nice. That's really
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
Well, congrats. I love that. You took the leap and took a chance on yourself. And I do feel like a lot of people, like COVID, like entrepreneurship was really a big I guess positive thing that came from COVID for so
yeah,
many people.
Yeah.
yeah.
As I say, we both started our businesses in COVID, Tori and I, because
Look at
it was a time of reflection, and I feel like
It was.
I
yeah.
would probably have to look up if there's any data around,
There
around
has to
it, but
be.
there has to be that like lots of people launched businesses, especially online businesses and like remote
Hmm.
businesses during that time as
Totally.
well. Yeah.
Well, it's like you said, I think it was a time of reflection and a time to really think about your priorities.
Hmm. Yeah, like what matters.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's so much out of our control. And honestly, you learn that even more when you go into entrepreneurship. There's so much out of your control every single day. And you
Yeah.
might have a really good day or a really good week one week, and then it might completely change on you the next.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
there's no way to fully predict anything.
No, it's very humbling, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if my ego was a square, now it's a circle.
Mm.
I love that.
Like, cut your corners. Like, I've been
Yeah.
reshaped into
As I
a,
say, softened your edges, right? Softened the edges a lot.
very much.
Yeah. Well, for before we move on to the next question that we asked, for those who are not familiar with intersectionality, will you do your like high level explanation of what exactly that is for folks?
Yeah, that's always kind of like challenging for me because it's like an elevator pitch. So I'll do my
Yeah.
best. So
Yeah.
intersectionality very much is about interconnectedness. It's about we are all connected. Nothing is like isolated. And originally, when Professor Kimberly Crenshaw created the concept of intersectionality, it was to address the challenges that Black women face when it comes to race and gender, because race is one thing, right? And then gender is another. So that's oftentimes when you say what a Black man will face in his lifetime and a white woman will face in her lifetime, and their experience will be very different compared to a white man in their lifetime. However, if you are a Black woman, so it's a race and gender, how those kind of like your identities intersect and influence your lifetime journey. So that kind of is the original idea of how race and gender impact one's life experiences, and oftentimes it's to their disadvantage.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's to advantage, but at the time it was really looking at how gender and race created injustice and inequity for Black women. And now I think when we talk about intersectionality, it really is looking at things and life holistically, like the whole humanity. Like the three
Mhm.
of us sitting in a room, we are a group of intersectional beings. I mean, just from our appearance, maybe we all identify as women. However, if we just look a little deeper, our identities vary. And if we look even like further after a conversation, we will also realize, oh, we're actually all very similar, right? Like
Mhm.
as a woman living in the United States, we probably all have some struggles, for example, with the healthcare system, for example. because women always struggle with healthcare. So that's our common ground and similarity. So intersectionality really looks at both differences and similarities and see how our lives are interconnected and how we should be like together, not separated.
I love that. Thank you for
Yes.
diving into that explanation for
Yes, that
our
actually was
listeners.
that was really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, knowing what you know now, what piece of advice would you give yourself when you first started?
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't think this is novel. I didn't come up with this, but I really want to say like you have time
Mm,
and you don't have to rush. Um, Sometimes things are urgent, but most things are not urgent. We are so conditioned to treat everything as an emergency. And as a small business owner and as a woman of color, we feel like we have to constant just running and grinding and hustle, etc. We have to go from one thing to another, just like all the time. And I was running on that mentality. Now I know it is the scarcity mindset for almost 2 years until I really just my health took a toll, and I reflect on that, and I feel if I knew this, I would not have um, sacrificed my own
Mm.
well-being so much, including physical and mental well-being. So if I were to give myself advice like the younger version of myself, I really will just say you have time.
I love that. I
So
feel like I even now still need that
True.
reminder.
Me too. Yeah, just pace yourself.
It, it's so easy to forget, and this I think especially as entrepreneurs, we're constantly like making sure we know like where the next lead is coming from, and like trying to make sure we have things lined up, and trying to make sure we're doing a good job. And it's on one hand it's great, but on the other hand, yeah, it can backfire, and it can be really tempting to just work really really hard and not prioritize our own health, even though for some of us the reason why we started this in the first place was to have a better quality of life,
I
right?
know.
So
work life balance. Yep.
I
Mhm.
100%.
So I love that you still have time. I that's one of the things I'm gonna write down. I feel like with every guest, somebody says something that just clicks with me. And I'm like, I need to write this down. I need to put this somewhere so I can see it. And that's gonna be my nugget today.
Yeah, I'm glad. Thank you.
Hmm.
Well, thank you for that. And I do think, I mean, I'm noticing that in my own life, in my own business, just like slowing down, not having that fake urgency. Yesterday, I did a whole, like, I cleaned up my ClickUp space and like put, the new tasks and things that I have for different clients, and also put, like, okay, do I really, like, it feels great to like knock out a lot of to-dos, but like, do I really need to, be doing this, or can I like relax and like put that off till next week? And nobody, at least I hope nobody is checking on stuff over the weekend, so I'm like, yeah, people can wait for that till Monday or even Tuesday, like it
Yeah,
doesn't need to be out
yeah,
the door on
yeah,
Friday. And also sometimes like I don't want that popping into their inbox so that they feel like they need to answer it on a Friday,
exactly.
as
Yeah,
well. So
yeah, that's such great advice. I have had people telling me, I'm so sorry, I haven't got your email. And I'm like, just chill. Like,
yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, from our work together too, I'm like, I'm talking to Joe this week. I'll just tell her when I see her
yeah,
what's going on
yeah,
and
exactly.
things like that, because it's sometimes easier than typing it all out.
Hmm.
Okay, so last question before we jump into the hot seat. But what is your why? Why, we all three of us know entrepreneurship is not easy, but what's your why to keep this going?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. Um, well, I think the short answer is that I I just never had a leader, a manager, or a boss who really like lifted me up.
Mm.
I mean, I have had um managers and leaders who say, like, at times, yes, they were helpful. Like, I'm not kind of like entirely discounting their contribution to my growth. But I think deep down, I never, like, in my 12-year in the US up until 2022, is that I've had good managers, I have had okay managers, but I never had leaders that I felt like, you know what, I'm gonna follow your steps. And that was, it wasn't great because I feel like if you were a white man in the US, you will have a lot of role models. I
Mhm.
But for me, as an immigrant from China who moved to the States as an adult, and then lived in the Midwest, and then moved to the West Coast, and then had a job, had to go through immigration, I'm like, where is my role model?
Yeah.
So after a while, I just felt like, I want to do something on my own so that hopefully someone else, if they know me, they can feel like, oh, that's possible. Like, a possibility is for other people, for someone who look like me, they don't
Mhm.
have to follow this conventional path, but they can also do something for themselves. And you don't have to have a textbook, because I didn't, and I'm sure you all might not have.
Mhm.
So I wanted to create that kind of possibility. It's like, if I can do this, a lot of people can do too. I didn't go to a business school. Like, my background is communications. I should have been a reporter, but I never became a reporter. I was like journalist, like journalism major. I never studied business, or my accounting class was like bad.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do it because I really felt the kind of like, I felt compelled to do something so that other people can feel like, oh, that is possible.
So now we're going to move on to the fun part of the podcast where we ask hot seat questions. And I think originally we designed this to be like really fun, like random questions that, we could just ping pong real quick, but
Mhm.
they never are that way. Like they're just really fun like random questions that spark other conversations. So yeah, don't feel too stressed about the word hot seat questions by any means. But I always kick it off with the same question, which is, what is the best and or worst advice that you've received in your career?
Oh my God. The best advice would be, so far, I think, follow your instinct, follow your gut, and follow your truth. Like, I think I've heard a variation, kind of different versions of that same advice, and they came from different people, and every time I hear that, it's a good reminder for me. Every time I follow my instinct, it's
Mhm.
usually the right way to go. So I think that's good advice for me. I think, I don't know if it's worse advice or bad advice. Someone oftentimes in the US would say, if it's not broken, don't fix it. um, I feel that creates complacency.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, I don't. I mean, at first I was like, okay, I see merits in there. At the same time, I feel it allows people to have excuse to not question,
Mhm.
because even if something isn't broken, can we improve it? Can we make it better? So I feel I challenge that advice because I think it gives people reason to not think and not be curious. And I think curiosity is so important in entrepreneurship. So I will say, yeah.
Well, whenever I hear that advice, I always feel like it's what keeps inequity going, right? Because it's like
Yeah.
I might think something is broken, but somebody who is, very privileged and getting uplifted by the systems of, let's just say it out loud, white supremacy, is
Yeah.
not going to feel that way. And so it's like
Yeah.
broken for who?
Mm,
And
yes.
who is getting left behind, or who is, being taken advantage of in our systems. And so yeah, and that's always, that phrase is like a trigger phrase for me because, like you
Totally.
said, it is complacency, and it is like, we are only going to do the status quo. We do not want to hear your ideas, thoughts, or disruptions
Yeah.
to our regularly scheduled programming.
100%. Yeah.
Well, I want to dig a little deeper. You did tell us a little bit about your experience as a Chinese immigrant, but I wanted to give you kind of space to talk about,
Mm,
how that has impacted your entrepreneurial journey, or just, I think a lot of folks don't understand what it's like to go through the immigration process in the United States. We have a lot of rhetoric publicly about, or about this by those who shall not be named, but,
mm,
about it's very easy, or we have a lot of, illegal people coming in here. For the folks who are listening, I do not mean that derogatorily, and I'm putting very big quotation marks around
mhm.
that point. But yeah, just would love your thoughts, and just to share your experience of how that was. And sorry you had to be in the Midwest. I know it is not as friendly as it is in some other parts of the country as well.
Yeah. So I want to clarify. Did you mean like my immigration experience or my experience as an immigrant entrepreneur from China?
Either way, yeah,
Okay.
both
Um,
and.
yeah, great. Very intersectional. So I feel like as an immigrant in the US who's from China, I think my upbringing as a child in China and me growing up as an adult in the US, like those experiences, because it's so intersectional, it kind of makes sense for me because in China, it's like collectivism. Yes, it's not. It's a socialist slash communist country, and the ideology is very different from the U.S. At the same time, um, people do things together. So there's this sense of like togetherness, and everyone contributes, and the collectivism that I grew up with in China. And coming to the US, I was, so accustomed to individualism, just learning more and more, the so-called American dream, or like the self-made, also huge air quotes here, self-made, very successful people is just emphasize on individualism. And I see the good for both. And I also see the not so good for both as well. So I feel like as a Chinese person living in the US, I'm able to take advantage of the good from both systems, and also filter out, because of my curiosity and wanting to learn, being able to filter out the things that don't really help me on my day to day. So I feel like I do have this kind of like in both worlds in between, and that's the kind of the advantage I have as a Chinese immigrant. And on the other hand, I wouldn't say this is a disadvantage, but I do feel like I see the perspective that folks who are born in the US might not have. For example, every time I fly back to the US, I always kind of like, am I gonna encounter any like questions or scrutiny? that a US born person, especially a white person, wouldn't encounter. So I always have that kind of like slight nervousness as I come in or return to the States. Not because I did anything wrong. It's the kind of like, are they gonna see me as other? Like that's always a possibility. And this year, when I came back to the US after visiting family, for the first time ever, like after 15 years living in the US, the officer at the customs said, "Welcome home" to me. And that was
Wow.
a big deal. Like, you probably wouldn't even think about it if you are American.
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously, but like for the first time in 15 years, this officer just
Mm-hmm.
like casually said, "Welcome home." And I was actually stunned. I was like, "Are you saying that to me?"
Wow.
It's kind of like a very personal but also relatable experience to the immigrant community that I think is very special to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's that feeling of belonging, right? Instead of othering. Like one of
Mm,
my favorite things is when I go to Hawaii and like, people at a place are like, you can get we call it the kama aina rate, which is like a discount for locals. And they're like, just show your ID and you'll get like the discounted rate. And I was like, I don't live here. I don't have an ID for here. Like, I was like, can I just flash you my ID and you still give me like the rate or whatever?
or my face is my ID.
Exactly. Like, can I say I forgot it or something like that? But I always feel really good, when I go back to Hawaii and you get that like, oh, even though I haven't lived here for so long, you still feel that like that sense. So I love that because I want that is the United States that I want to be
Mm,
living in,
Yeah.
one that doesn't other people who
Mhm.
have an appearance of being foreign or anything like that. And I know during the time where we were getting so much Asian hate during COVID, I mean it's just very scary to be in a place where you don't know how people are going to react and treat you, and a danger being a
yeah.
woman too in that
Yeah.
space.
I
So
mean, we just never know. We just never know. So,
yeah, thank you for sharing that, Joe. I love that.
Thank you for sharing that story. Yeah. And thank you for sharing your story of being
yeah,
here.
of course.
Well, I'm going to shift gears a little bit with my next question. But I know that you have a podcast, as we referenced earlier, and I just kind of want to ask a little bit about your podcast, how that came about, what that journey looked like for you, and has that impacted your entrepreneurship journey at all as well?
Uh, Thank you for that question. I love that question because the podcast, the intersection is a podcast, was because of basically a joke. Um, when I started Intersectional Group, my friend goes by D. She suggested a podcast program, and I was like, everyone has a podcast. We don't need more podcasts. It's like, what am I doing? And she's like, well, let's just try. It could be fun. And so we started as a duo, like a two host program, and it was called From the Roundabout. It's like a traffic circle, it's a roundabout.
Hmm.
So we
Hmm.
are like, yeah, that's kind of like an intersection, and then people comes and goes, and then we have an encounter, and then we go about our ways. So it was called From the Roundabout. Eventually, we pivoted because of different priorities in life, and now it's a one like I'm the host, and I renamed it as the intersection because of intersectional group, and I feel like the intersection is like a visual almost presentation of illustration, I should say. When my guests come here, it's an intersection. We meet at the intersection, and then we have a conversation, and then we go about our lives. So that's basically the origin of the story, was because someone was like, what if you had a podcast? And I was like, no, why would I have a podcast? So I was like a reluctant podcaster, and now I really enjoyed it. So I'm very grateful for my friend Dee who suggested it. And what my experience has been with the intersection really is, one, storytelling is very, very powerful. Um, if you if you met or encountered a stranger in the street, you wouldn't think twice, like what this person's life is like. You just like, oh, just a person, and then you keep walking. We don't really want to know about someone else unless it's there is a setting, there is a space, there is curiosity, and someone actually like tell me about your life. Like, oh, you want to know about my life? Great, you know. So I think storytelling is really powerful, and everyone has a unique story. Um, and we won't know if we don't explore that. So just imagine how many great stories just kind of vanish because we don't have that curiosity. So I think that's one experience I've had is time and time again. I'm very uh, just surprised sometimes and impressed every time, and just amazed by how much people share on the podcast, just like the conversation we're having now. Like people are very real about who they are and what they go through, and they are willing to share their learning and wisdom with us. And I think that's just so wonderful and humbling. And for me personally, they teach me, my guests, Ashlyn, you're one of them, and you teach me so much. Like someone told me recently and said, uh, you are a good speaker. They commented like, you are a really good speaker, like you're a good storyteller. And I was like, well, it's because I learn from my guests. Like my guests tell story, and every time I talk to them, I learn from a storyteller. So
Mhm.
that's how I get to hone my skills as well as a speaker.
Mhm.
So those are my kind of learning from the program so far. Yeah, it's been wonderful.
That's great.
I love that.
Yeah. It feels so aligned to the reason that we do this too, which is
Yeah,
like we get
So
to,
fun.
yeah, it is really fun. And like, I
it
think
is.
it's just been really inspiring to hear so many different,
Yes.
I mean, we're all, they put us in this bucket of entrepreneurs, and it's,
Yeah,
it's a word that's out there. But it's nice to hear everybody's individual journey, and, who has commonalities, who has some, differences. And, just like the whole underpinning of intersectionality is that we have so many things that make up our identity. So like we all share
exactly.
entrepreneur as an identity, but that doesn't mean we're automatically the same or even
Yeah,
have the same experiences.
I agree. Like our paths are very different, but then we come together at some point. And that's
Hmm.
just really beautiful.
Yeah, the convergence.
A
Awesome.
conversion. Yeah.
Okay,
I
taking a
agree.
whole different pivot again. um,
That's
what are
entrepreneurship.
Yeah, right. What are some common challenges you see people face when it comes to understanding intersectionality and how to practice intersectional leadership or intersectional living?
Great question. Um, when I see intersectionality, I see dimensions. Um, it's it's multi-dimensional. It has different facades. Uh, and I think one common challenge for folks is, and it has nothing to do with intelligence. I think it just
Mhm.
has like something to do with how we perceive the world. Is It's very binary.
Yeah.
It's a very two dimension. It's either or. It's like, well, if it's either this or that.
Mm-hmm.
It's either you or me. It's either my way or highway. um, it is not very common for people to think, what if both are true?
Mm-hmm.
What if things exist at the same time? What if we don't have to pick one thing? What if we can have multiple? So I think because we very much function in a binary world, we forget that we have the opportunity to, or the ability, really, actually. Yeah, we are all able to see things from different perspectives if we practice enough, if we are reminded that it's not one or the other, it's not either or. Oftentimes, it's everything, it's both, it's multiple things exist and happening at the same time. So I think that's a common challenge for folks, is having a hard time seeing things from multi dimensions.
Mhm.
And I think that goes to intersectional leadership and intersectional living as well. Again, we live in a society, a world that is particularly charged right now. And both, at workplace and in community and in family, people like to, like, if I'm not right, then if I'm if you are not right, then I am right. It's like, what if everyone has a valid point? What if this is just like a very, inspiring or a spontaneous or a dynamic conversation? What if this is not an argument? What if this is not a fight?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when it comes to leadership, leaders usually have this kind of like, what I say is what you will do. And I think that kind of a mentality is very limiting for development at workplace. And I think the same goes to community building as well. A lot of like well-intended leaders in communities, they believe whatever they believe in is the right way to go. So they could see outside opinions or ideas or feedback as like, why are you against me? I'm trying to do something good here. And oftentimes that really isn't what's going on. It really is just everyone wants to do the right thing and people want to share something helpful potentially. So I think it's this either or mentality, which I think, if we go a little deeper, we can see this is the scarcity mindset. So, what intersectionality and intersectional leadership and intersectional living encourage us to do and practice is the abundance mindset. Abundance, like, it's very inclusive, it's inviting, it's welcoming, it's everyone, it's us
Mm-hmm.
all. It's not you or me.
Me, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whew. So many things that you
Yeah.
said are part of, those tenets of white supremacy culture, like either or thinking, having one right way. And so I will offer that, like, intersectionality, intersectional living, intersectional leadership are all offer us ways to get around, like, to stop being so white supremacy dominant in our culture. It is that expansive, and it comes down to just like respecting that everybody has their own opinion, is allowed to have
Yeah.
their own opinion, their own way of doing things.
Yeah.
And I think, of like another framework is that utilitarianism, right? As long as it does no harm, let's, if you want to get from point A to B a different way than I get to point A and B, like, who
That's
cares, as
fine.
long as we are not, um, not running somebody over to get it, or causing,
Exactly.
disruption that way. So yeah, that's wonderful.
I
Yeah,
mean, it
thanks for
shows up
that.
in our kind of aesthetics too, like design, in the design
Mhm.
world. It feels
Mhm.
like things today becoming so cut and dry, I feel. It's all
Yeah.
lines and simplistic. It's very, what's it called? minimalism, like very,
Mhm.
very minimum. It becomes so popular. And I like minimalism to a degree. I do. At the same time, if we look at architecture and paintings and art from a couple years ago or even 1,000 years ago, it's not minimalism. It's not simplistic, but just look at the beauty
Mhm.
of a church, of a cathedral,
Yeah. The
um,
complexity of it too.
complexity of it.
Yep.
And now everything feels like cookie cutter
Mhm.
oftentimes. And yeah, I think that's a reflection of our world right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm going to completely shift gears with the next question. And actually, this one's just a question that's for fun. So in your bio, you say that you are a plant parent. And I wanted to bring that back up for a couple reasons. One, I'm a new plant parent myself, and I've kept one alive for a couple years, so I therefore think that I'm an expert and can buy more. Um,
That's how it starts, Tori. I started
it's
with a
how it
peace
starts.
lily and I have 7 more plants. So,
Great. That's a great place
So
to start.
I want to know how many plants you have and what your favorite types of plants are, and if you have any advice also for new plant parents.
I don't know how many I have, but I can give you a rough number. Let's see, one, two, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 10 in this room. Oh, actually more. I have some cactus there too. More than 10 in this room, and maybe a bunch more out there in the living room. So I'm gonna say about 25, 30.
Nice.
I love this.
And if you start with a peace lily, right? That's perfect because you cannot kill a peace lily. They don't die.
Oh,
Yeah, she will tell you when she needs water. She looks
okay.
so sad, and you're like, "I'm
Writing
so
this
Cannot
sorry."
down.
kill a
Yeah,
peace lily. It's like impossible.
yeah.
And next, because we live so close to each other, I'm gonna send you a spider plant, which you also cannot kill. It's impossible to kill a spider plant. I have so many babies from
Okay.
my mama spider plant, so I'm gonna give you one of those. They're great.
I love this. I'm so excited.
Yeah, they're wonderful. So I will do that. I will make sure that happens. And I think advice really, it's okay if they die sometimes. I have
Yeah.
killed plants, and it just means they didn't. It just means that's the end of a relationship, really, to me.
I love it.
Um, I mean, it's sad. I always like, dang, I killed one. And at the longer as you go and the more plants you have, you will just do better and better. It just takes practice. It's all about practicing. And also I learned recently from my boyfriend's mom, who's a great gardener. She says if you speak to the plants, they will understand you.
That.
Oh.
I believe her,
Mhm.
just because
Okay.
she has hundreds. uh So like if it's her advice, that's yeah. So if you speak to your plants, they will understand.
I like this.
Yeah. So
I like this a lot.
basically, yeah, just practice and try. And if they die, say goodbye and carry on.
Okay.
I love
I
that
like this. Thank
permission
you.
to forgive yourself for
Yeah.
killing plants.
Because otherwise, you wouldn't try again.
That's
Right.
true. That's true. I know. I
That's true.
really, really thought when my mother-in-law gave me the peace lily, I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna kill this, and it's just not gonna like I'm just gonna feel so bad. But she has lived a long, healthy life.
Peace
So
lily is the best. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I have our last question that we're asking all of our guests this season, which is what is a piece of media content, like a song, a movie, a book, a podcast, that you're obsessed with or really digging right now?
Oh, that's a really good one. Um, I'm really addicted to podcasts, so I'm gonna share a podcast I listen to regularly. Um, it's from Tara Brach. I mean, there is a lot of very practical podcast programs out there, and I think there are just so many um, that I cannot pick one. But for this one, it's about personal growth. So
Okay.
Tara Brach is a spiritual teacher, psychologist, and an author. So her podcast is oftentimes about wellness and mindfulness, and also about compassion and how to love ourselves and other people. And I think that's played a big role in my own practice in intersectionality. Because if we don't have the humanness, if we don't have the human part in our practice, only focus on business, then that's incomplete.
Mm.
And I think being able to practice compassion and self love is really, really important for people on this entrepreneurship journey, any journey, definitely in this life. So I would really recommend Tara Brach's podcast. It's her name, Tara, and Brach, Brach. So if you
Nice.
just look up on your podcast app, whatever, any app, just search Terra Bra. You'll find it. It's taught me so much. And every time I have like an important event, say, or like an important task I have to do, I would listen to some of her episodes before.
Nice.
It's really grounding. Yeah.
Okay.
Love it.
I like that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I love asking this question too, because I think I'm just
I
going
know.
to build my like new podcast list, my new book list, all of that for
I
this
know.
season.
Helps the recommendations. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, we've come to the end of our time, Joe. I wanted to turn it over to you if you want to share, because we'll have this all in the show notes too, but if you want to share anything about your business, what you're working on, who's an ideal client, and where to find you.
Thank you for that opportunity, and thank you for having me. Yeah, I am really focusing on doing more speaking engagements to talk about intersectional living, intersectionality, intersectional leadership. So I welcome all kinds of speaking engagements. So if folks are interested in, please get in touch. I can be reached at joe@intersectional.group. And if you are on Instagram, my handle is intersectional living. So intersectional and living. That's very easy. So yeah, so just looking forward to connecting with folks and help share more about the practice of intersectionality.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much again for being on. Thank you, listeners, for sticking around. As always, if you have any questions for us or questions for our guests, you can hit us up on our Instagram or email us at aloha@taketheleap-today.com. Or you can check out our website, taketheleap-today.com, and let us know if you have a guest that you'd recommend or any listener feedback. And we will see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Take the Leap podcast. Check out our show notes to connect with us and our guests. If you have questions about the episode or ideas for future topics, send us a direct message on Instagram or email us at aloha@taketheleap-today.com. If you're interested in being a guest, fill out the guest interest form on our website.
If you're a new entrepreneur who is looking for a roadmap to move your business idea forward, check out the Take the Leap course on our website, taketheleap-today.com. Members who join the course also have an opportunity to join us in bi-weekly co-working and group coaching calls to build momentum and work on your business.
And if you'd like a flavor of what we offer, sign up for our free webinar with the 9 essential steps you need to launch your business with clarity and confidence. See you next time.